not the best outing, not the longest outing as well for the starters. I guess what were your kind of high-level thoughts about the approach to preseason and just the performance too?
I didn't mind the approach in terms of, it kind of almost got to a point with the first team offense where it's like we're running a vanilla offense. We've got 2 backup guards in there. Why keep beating our heads against the wall? It's just not happening today offensively. And it sucks. I mean, you don't want to end a preseason game on that note, basically throwing in the white towel and saying, okay, it just isn't our day. But it was a very small sample size like that. There's the caveat, but it wasn't good. I mean, Chandler Zavala looked poor in run blocking. He looked poor in pass protection. One of the, I guess the one time Bryce got sacked, that I think Brady Christensen, there was a little stunt. You saw this, a little interior stunt that got passed off to Brady. I think he was a little off balance and wasn't able to hold him off of Bryce. And then even the center, Fortner, they finally pick up a first down and he's downfield and it gets called back. So just that group in particular. And look, I think you take most teams' offenses around the league and you're going to take out both starting guards, you're going to struggle a little bit. And certainly the Panthers did.
Yeah, especially when they're like one of the best players on the team. Like, Rob Hunt and Damian Lewis are 2 of the most, obviously Robert's been hurt, but Damian Lewis has been one of the most consistent players since he's been here. And we know the reason why they paid all that money to those guys is because of those issues. And I think it was Scott Fowler. He mentioned like it kind of gave 2023 vibes of the guards not being there and just some of that interior pressure just being very, very disruptive. What was your vibes on like the whole not earning more reps thing? Because I think that's kind of a hot button word for fans per se. Well, like, what is your take on like that approach of like earning more reps?
Well, like I said, I mean, Canales sometimes has a way of sort of talking in this like a lot of coaches, but coach speak, but he sort of has his own Canales speak. And I don't know, it didn't bother me that much. I think it was, like I said, in an ideal world, they would have had, a couple productive series and then gotten Bryce out of there at 20 snaps ish. But I know that when he said that, I was like, but I don't know. It didn't bug me a lot. Honestly, fans don't want to hear this, but again, I don't want to make excuses because it was bad. There's no sugarcoating, and there's probably, and I know we're kind of jumping into it already, but there's a bigger discussion to be had about this offensive line depth. But on the good side, there were if you really squinted, there were a couple good things to point out even on offense. Jonathan Brooks gets 4 touches, comes out of it none the worse for wear. Jasim Reed catches another touchdown. Rasheed Walker just manhandled a couple guys in the 9 plays that he was in. And so there was a couple bright spots, but you had to really look hard for him.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I wasn't mad at the approach. I mean, the guys can't get a first down. I mean, what else? They didn't earn more. They didn't earn a new set of downs. Like they literally didn't earn more reps. Like I said, I think he really meant 3 series. That was kind of the thing. And they just, however they looked, had it been 30 plays, because they were 3 10-play drives, I doubt it. I doubt they went 10-play drives in the first 2. They would have went back in. But I think they had more of an idea that way versus the number of plays. You just never know how many plays it'll take for you to move the ball. The only thing that really threw me off was the defensive approach of like subbing guys out mid-drive. And it wasn't even like a TV timeout where like an extended break or like an injury. It was off of like a penalty, I guess, right after their face mask from Travis Gibson. And like now we're looking and I'm like, is that Zakee Wheatley in the game? And I'm like, okay, this is weird. And so for guys to go, I don't even want to say cold, but like you've been on the field a few times going against Josh Allen as starters, and then they just kind of yank you. And I think Canales' reasoning was like guys like JC and Mike have missed a portion of camp and they had like a deal number for them. But it just seemed a little bit out of the norm for that type of approach defensively. What you think?
I agree with you. That was very weird, and it was pretty much across the board. It was they were subbing out interior linemen. They had some backup linebackers in. It was just all of a sudden they were out of there, and that was not going to be a recipe for success against Josh Allen. And in the first team defense, Mike Jackson gave up a couple catches. They didn't look very sharp either, except for the edge rushers. And
Yeah.
good that and again, small victories, right? And
Right.
in the grand scheme of things, we are talking about preseason. I mean, I've covered some preseasons when everything looked awesome and the regular season was and just the opposite. So you don't want to. And then I will say, I think, Dunk, I'm going to date myself, but I'm pretty sure my first year on the beat, the Panthers' first team offense. This was 2010, I should say. And you know where I'm going with this, but that 2010 offense with Matt Moore and Jimmy Clausen, I guess, in preseason, they didn't score a touchdown in the preseason, and then of course went on to win 2 games all season and didn't score many. I think it might have only scored 7 offensive touchdowns all year, whatever the number was. It was embarrassing. So sometimes this does make a difference. But at least I want to get your thoughts on how you thought Princely and Jalen Phillips in particular played.
Man, I think you can't ask for anything more from like a team that's been 31st and 32nd in pressures and sacks over the past two seasons or so. And so like to see, and not even just like when you have these when you sign these big time guys like a Jalen Phillips, you expect like a trickle down for other guys to kind of feed off of that. But like, I mean, Princely almost set the tone himself. He was going against Deion Dawkins, who was no slouch of a tackle. And so like, I think he might have, I mean, some of them were a little bit later, so they didn't technically register as quarterback hits. But I think he only had like 8 pass rushing snaps. And if you look at the tape, he actually made legal contact on the quarterback 4 different times. And, a few times he was in on that sack that kind of helped Jalen Phillips get his. I don't know how he didn't get a sack on that one, but just seeing those kind of that bookend feel that we haven't really had in Carolina in a while. And just seeing Jalen Phillips, some of the stuff he was able to do. And it's a struggle to get Josh Allen down, but you saw he was all over him, and it felt good to see that. And like you said, in terms of just taking things out of the game that are positive, that was something positive. But on the other end, something that you thought was the sign of consistency, where you're probably the most talented, which is the secondary. Now you have blown coverages again, and these are shades of 2024 where there's miscommunications and stuff like that. So it's like plug in one hole and then another one pops up behind. So I'm not really sure how that stuff is going to work out in terms of just time on task, or if it's just a sign of things to come.